Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hi everyone, and welcome back to episode 27 of Casual Watch Talk. Kris, how have you been this week?
Good, pretty good. In there.
Yeah, it's been still at home. We've been told that we're not going back to our office till October.
Okay, I mean that's good. I mean that's safe. That's a safe thing to do. We've got we might be cutting our office space down, which is we got about 6,500 square feet, and we might be cutting it in half. So that tells me we're in for the long haul.
Yeah, my wife actually, they just shut their office down because they've been working so well from home. The guy's like, why do we have an office space? I think that it's certainly changing people's mentality,
Absolutely.
Isn't it? About having,
Yeah.
And the same thing will probably go for watch shops as well, won't it? I guess people.
I would hope. I just, I think we. We're IT industry has been screaming for transforming the way we do this. Just, there's no need for a lot of people to just commute into the city. And so we can solve this with computers in the future. So that's good that's changing that. And then as far as the watch industry, yeah, I would hope so. Although I was just watching Federico, and he was mentioning again how it does seem like the Swiss watch industry just doesn't want to acknowledge the internet. So
interesting, isn't it? Because even I would say I keep stalking those new Seiko watches, the 62 MAS. Tell me off, Kris, because I'll get it, and then I'll be obsessing about the timekeeping.
I know, right? Yep. You'll put it on the time grapher, and it'll just be 10 minus 10, and I'll turn it, and it'll go +4, and I'll be like, well, it's not that bad.
They just look so cool, though. They just look so cool.
They do. They absolutely do. I wish they either put a better movement in them or they price them accordingly. I think what are they, up in the 1,000, right?
Yeah, they're over 1,000. I think there's one that's like 1,100. I mean, you'd hope that would come down, but it's not going to come down dramatically, is it? I mean, maybe 750, or what do you think?
Right, like on a discount, like after like MSRP, whatever. But yeah, I feel like I myself could probably justify having that in the 500-600 range.
Yeah.
But just not the 1,000, and not, even if I got a discount on it, 800, something like that. Yeah.
What you just mentioned about the Swiss watch industry, Seiko's the same, because there's no information about it. There's a couple of articles on Hodinkee. They've got two of the limited edition, special edition watches. These limited editions are really getting on my goat, but one of the main stories I'm going to talk about, one of the main news stories is about that. But they could be feeding me content. I would watch a little video of this watch, maybe a couple more photos, because they've only got these very sort of sterile photos on their website. Please just feed me more, because I'm nearly there. You're tempting me now, Seiko.
Yep.
They're just awful at that.
Yep. Just get a bunch of young cool people in a marketing group. We're talking, maybe 5-6 people, and start a campaign. And yeah, they could really turn out. They are doing some more. I mean, they are on Instagram now. I've seen them more on Instagram, but it's very stock footage. Just it doesn't really engage, other than, yep, we have this watch.
And I'm sure some people would argue, well, they already sell enough watches and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I bet you if you asked a demographic of young to 18-year-olds, name a watch brand, I bet you hands down they would say Movement before they mention Seiko, because of just the blitz that Movement's been doing on social media.
Yeah, or just as likely that they would say Movement or Danny Wellington next to like Casio or Seiko, like,
and Swatch, because Swatch is at every
Yeah, Swatch is always on, a very pop culture, very pop media, definitely in your face marketing, but that's what they are. And so they're doing it. And so I can't fault them for that.
Well, let's kick it off then. We went on a little bit of a tangent then, my fault. Let's kick it off with, have you had a watch obsession this week?
Yes. Even though I'm not sure if it is summer outside, other than it's hot in my house. But I was, all right, I'll take that back. We did go out for a little bit. We went for a drive up in the mountains, and then we went again the other day and just drove around the canyons just to get out of the house, go for a drive. So summer is here, and I am converting. Even though I can't go to the lake, even though I can't go to the ocean, I'm converting to my summer strap, my summer watch setup, and I received a recommendation on Instagram. Someone checked out these straps from Strapcode. They aren't the Crafter Blue strap. Okay. They're actually this brand called MILTAT. I don't know if it's Miltat. That sounds weird, yeah. But Miltat. That sounds weird, but okay. Capital M, lowercase I, L, capital TAT. Someone was like, not the Crafter Blue straps, and sideline, I had a horrible experience with Crafter Blue, but I bought directly from them. I didn't buy from Strapcode, so I'm not gonna knock them for that. But thick rubber band dive strap, solid, has a great surface finish to it, very flexible, doesn't smell at all, doesn't give you the vanilla smell, doesn't give you the cured rubber smell.
Right.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So I'm super excited. I'm excited about it, but it seems very similar to what you would get from Zinn.
Okay.
For their dive strap. So that heavy, it's got a little curve to the end of the lugs, and it's the FKM rubber. I believe it is. Let me just triple check that. Yeah. The FKM rubber, I guess it's some molecular combination of chemicals that make it. So whatever FKM stands for, someone will school me on our Facebook channel. Got it pretty quickly. The other thing I wanted to say was, I don't know about you, but the quick spring bars, with the sliders.
Yeah, with the slider. Yeah.
I am kind of petrified with those on a dive watch. I'm going swimming with this thing, and it's not a NATO strap, so it's like if a spring bar goes. I've never had a problem with the quick release ones, but for some reason when I'm in the lake and I'm looking down on my wrist, I'm like, quick release. I don't know how about you?
I know what you mean. I like the thicker spring bars. This is a funny thing, and I think I commented on a forum once that I've never had a spring bar fail unless it's been on a NATO. So people are like, oh, it's amazing, a NATO strap, because
right,
if a spring bar fails, you've saved it. But nobody talks about sometimes a NATO strap can put a really big load onto a spring bar that necessarily a strap wouldn't, because it's more like a downward force, can't it? And a NATO strap can slide around.
Right, depending on where the lugs are, you're absolutely right. Like, if you have a pretty steep case back, and then depending on where the lugs are, you have a little 1.5 or 2-to-1 pulley going on there that can pull down. I can see that. That makes sense. So what I've done in the past is I've actually ejected the quick release bar, because I had a silicone strap that I did this on, and I put one of the fat spring bars in, and I felt safe. The quick release spring bar that comes with this Miltat FKM strap from Strapcode is a serious business. It is, I think it's heavier duty, thicker, and I mean the spring in it is easily twice the amount of force that I've ever had for a quick release spring bar, and I'm super confident that it's not coming off. So I was excited about that. And then I also picked up, have you tried, I think we talked about this one time, it's Archer. Archer makes the, Barton.
Yes.
Okay. Let me back up. So I found this out recently. Maybe you knew this. Most people might know this. I didn't. But apparently Archer, Barton, these are Amazon brands. Well, I don't know if they're owned by Amazon, but they sell on Amazon. I'm rambling. Archer, Barton, and Ritchie.
Yes.
Those three, they have to be the same company.
I know Barton is, I think it's made in California, Barton straps. They make some of it's just one design, the rubber strap that they do. They make some of the best rubber straps, I think, because not only are they thin, very well made, they're only $20, and they have a notch on the end of the tail end of the strap. I said tail end the other day of the strap. I don't even know if that's the proper name for it. The non-buckle side. Which means that the keeper locks it in place. Not only did they do that, which is cool, so it locks the keeper in place, they give you two lengths of the strap. So they give you a longer tail end and a shorter tail end. So if you've got a smaller wrist, you've not got all that excess rubber on there. I think that it's a genius idea. I don't know why more people don't do it. Having said that, I've ended up with 4 different short ends of a strap.
A bunch of little extras. Yeah, I've got a little... sorry, Earth.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. But they're extremely comfortable, very pliable. I've just bought one for the Breitling watch.
So the thing that keyed it off for me is the Ritchie strap that I just bought. It has a different texture on the outside, but has the keeper and is a super similar design. I would not be shocked if they're the same company. I'm pretty sure they are, but we'll have to look into that. But again, like their that dive strap that they have, great value for money. Just super soft, super comfortable silicone. So I picked up one of those as well to have a little color, little gray and teal. I went a little color combination, a little fun summer. It
sounds like
watch.
A Barton collar combination where it's two different things. Yes, it's weird, isn't it? Rubber straps. You have to really try them out, don't they? There's an Uncle Seiko one that he made that was a redo of the one that came on the original Seiko Arnie. And I don't know what rubber compound he used for that, but it was extremely comfortable, really comfortable. I've never had a strap that is both soft like the Barton strap, but also has that resistance where stuff won't stick to it, or it doesn't have that more matte fix. So it's like a shiny strap, but very pliable. Yeah,
I got an Uncle Seiko Tropic, but I found it was awful stiff to the point where I had to do the in the coffee cup with boiling water trick to kind of get it to fit around my wrist comfortably.
I think there's definitely his first generation one. He might be on version 3 now, but the first generation ones were certainly more stiffer than his subsequent ones, I would say. So, well, there we go. So, I need to do my watch obsession.
Yeah. What are you obsessing about this week, Sam?
I've been obsessing hard about... So on the last podcast we talked about... And sorry, everyone, for the delay in that. There was so much going on that it took me over a week nearly to edit it. So apologies about that, everyone. I released it last week, so it looks like we missed a week, but I don't feel like we did because we recorded it and it just took me ages to do it. But anyway, on the last episode, we talked about the Breitling watch, the B1, and I ended up taking a partial refund. I don't know if I updated everyone on that. I ended up accepting the partial refund, went toe-to-toe a bit with the eBay seller, but I'm really glad that I kept it because I love this watch. This is like an Annie Digi one. It still bothers me a bit that the dial is damaged. So I've been asking around a few places, see if they can recondition it. There's a Breitling expert in Miami. I also asked Federico as well, but his hands guy, his maintenance guy he does Breitling, but he doesn't do Annie Digi. Apparently the parts are hard to get hold of. So I spoke to a guy in Miami who is a Breitling expert, and he said, wow, I've never seen one of these dials. It's incredible. I would just leave it. But I still keep flirting with the idea of, should I swap the dial out and then try and get it reconditioned? The hands definitely need replacing, but I don't know how difficult it is.
That's interesting. That's kind of the sign of a true craftsman. It's America. Like, he could easily charge you any amount of money, and I think you'd probably be somewhere between $300 and $800, I think you'd be sending him PayPal. Cool that he was like, just leave it as is. That's a cool, like, professional opinion. At least that kind of puts a check mark in the box that, like, you kept it and you took a little money back for it. You know, you got a little bit of partial refund, maybe not as much as you wanted, but at least gives you a little checkbox to say, like, hey, that's cool. I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah, it was funny because I sent him some photos. He's like, oh, it's so unique. I've never seen a B1 like that with the military insignia. He says, do you mind me asking how much you paid for it? And I said, well, it worked out at 1,300 and something after the refund. He's like, oh, that's easily a $3,500 watch. I'm like, well, you know, if you want to roll the dice, I might be tempted. He's like, oh no, I'm just gonna think.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny.
So now I'm in this I've been kind of obsessing over, if I do find someone to recondition the dial, I also don't want to be without it. So do I want to buy it? I've never bought a backup of a watch before, like two of the same one.
Oh jeez, wow.
But so I've been obsessing over that, and then the other Breitling ones that are Annie-Digis as well. I need to stop, really.
Yeah, when you start thinking about backup watches, you just, because if you're gonna send it out, you just have to send it out. And then I'll tell you, from my experience of sending a watch away and not being able to wear it for a long time, like a watch that you've fallen in love with and you want to wear and you can't wear it because it's broken and it's not waterproof and etc. And when you finally get the parts and send it away and you check up on it and you phone call it, and then like 3 weeks later you finally go and pick it up, it is totally worth it, because then you're just like, amazing, and then you have one and it's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So I'm going to toy around with that. But I've been sent some interesting ones in for review. You know, I've got another Phoebus that I need to review, and then that Mitch Mason, that field watch.
Yeah,
I was impressed with that. It's not, as I mentioned in the review, it's not to my personal taste, the actual aesthetic look of it, but one of the best cases I've seen on a micro brand. The attention to detail was next level, and those hands, those aren't off the shelf hands. He's had those custom made. They're not to my taste, but you can't help but be impressed by the craftsmanship.
So it's a good looking combo, and it's unique. I think I think you definitely gave it credit, because it's well made. It's well made and looked pretty good, and I think there's so much to choose from in this hobby that it's like, we can't, at least you were totally honest. I mean, like, I can't, and it's not for me. I don't love everything, but I'm the same way. It's just like, but as far as you appreciate like how it's put together, it's cool.
Exactly. And I think this is going to lead to our main topic, where we're going to talk in more length about Kickstarter and Kickstarter watches. But this one will be on Kickstarter, and if he's knocking it out for $379, I think this will be an absolute bargain. If you like the design of it, the look of it, then I mentioned in the review, you will not be disappointed with the quality. I was really impressed. The weighty feel of it. It's a handmade leather strap. I'm sure the watch roll will be extra, but this waxed leather watch or oiled leather watch roll that it came in was
you were excited about that. That's good.
Because doesn't it make you think, you're buying watches, you buy a Rolex and you get the plastic box. You're buying watches, many thousands of dollars, and they're nowhere near the level of finishing or the level of extras that come with some of these micro brands. You just can't fathom sometimes where the money goes for these.
Right. Yeah. And also, like, there's that, but there is definitely an uncanny valley that exists with microbrand watches. And I've heard a couple of YouTubers mention this, where if the box and the packaging is spectacular and amazing, and it's all like funky stuff, and it's like totally custom designed, it's like they spent more time on the box and they spent more time on the packaging. Whereas, I think with this, I think they just included a really good, well-made watch roll.
Exactly.
And that's because it was like just in a cardboard box, but it was simple, but it was like, this is a well-made thing, and it goes with this watch, and it's a good tie-in versus, all this extra stuff that you get sometimes. It's the spring bar tool and the special engraving and the special, laser etched card, and you're just like, oh, what is?
I'm with you. Don't send me a micro brand in a wooden box. This is because I'm not feeling it at all. But this was a really functional watch roll, and it had. Not only could you keep that watch in it, if anybody's not seen the review, it had 2 extra slots in there as well, so you could put like 2 other watches in.
Yeah. 3 watch travel is ready to go. Yeah. Travel roll. Yeah, it's good.
Mitch Mason check it out on Kickstarter. We'll be talking about Kickstarter a bit later on as well. Okay, so there's only really 2 news stories I wanted to run past you today, Kris. 2 that kind of caught my eye. One, definitely got to credit Stephen on the Facebook group because he alerted us to this yesterday. Tag Heuer are re-releasing the Montreal watch. Now, this is a watch that I reviewed the actual real Montreal, which was made in 1972. Right, yeah. This was an iconic racing watch. It was distinctive for the time. It was larger. It was so iconic that it had distinctively the winding crown and the time-setting crown was on the left-hand side of the case, and the chronograph pushers were on the right because it was built for purpose. It was built for racing. Mm-hmm. So Tag re-released the Montreal. They've made it a completely different case. They've lost its distinctive case. They've in fact said that it's inspired by the Montreal, but some of the design cues on the dial are actually from the Orange Boy, the Ortavia watch that was also made around the 70s, but it had a very distinctive subdial with fluorescent markers almost. In fact, it was orange on that, but on this new Tag, it is... I'm using Tag because I think they're like insulting the name of Heuer, even though they've only put Heuer on the dial. Anyway, it's got a decent movement in it, but they've made it, of course, limited edition at 1,000 pieces. There's zero reason why they need to make it limited edition. It's their 160th anniversary. Well, they say it's their 160th anniversary, but it's Heuer's 160th anniversary.
I know,
a company that Tag, who made parts for F1 cars, bought Heuer. So anyway, I won't go into that because that's a slippery slope with who owns what.
Yeah.
And they won for this watch. It's a good-looking watch, don't get me wrong. It is a good-looking watch, but it has nothing from the original Montreal. In fact, it's got design cues from the early Ortavias. They won $6,750 for this chronograph watch. I just, it beggars belief, really.
Yeah. I was just watching an interesting YouTube. Whose channel's what's the Christian? What's
Theo
his
and
channel?
Harris.
Theo and Harris. So he has an interesting take on Tag, and it makes a lot of sense because if you look at them, they are 4 different companies, and he kind of breaks it down. It's an interesting video. I'll have to link it on the Facebook page. He talks about it because how they do stuff is they have their modern F1 sports chronographs, their Tag Heuer, their modern watches that they do, that modern sports watch. Then they have their Heuer vintage reissues. Okay. Then they have their every man's watch, every lady's watch. I think he's who's buying a diamond ladies Tag? Who's buying this? That kind of thing. And then their I think it was their super, high horology, Hublot kind of level stuff that they do with all sorts of different processes and stuff. Yeah. They don't represent one thing. They come out with this stuff, and you don't know, when you hear, Tag Heuer is coming out with this new thing, you don't exactly know what you're going to get because you have 4 different options that you could get, they could, their last Baselworld release was just, kind of a basic, kind of field watch, aviation inspired sort of aesthetic, 3-hander, had some bunch of colors, not everyone was too excited about it, that kind of thing. Some people were excited about it, some people weren't, but then, you'll hear this, they'll do a reissue Heuer, and, they just, it's disjointed. And that's what I think is frustrating about
exactly.
About Tag.
And that usually if viewers of or listeners to the podcast, I should say, is because I'm a lot more open on the podcast than I am on the YouTube channel about my views, is a lot of these times I get frustrated about these watches because I would like to own this watch. I would like to own this watch. It's a beautiful looking watch, but they are taking the piss at $6,750. If you've got that money, this watch will not go. I'm convinced this watch will not go up in value. They made 1,000 pieces of it. I asked the question why. There's no limited edition materials.
That's where they priced it.
It's not like Omega with its I shouldn't use it. Omega's the worst example of this.
Yeah,
but I was going to say they put moon dust in the back, but it's not got anything limited or bespoke about it. It's not signed by a famous race driver. It's a weird thing because I believe if this watch was $3,000, it would sell out. This watch is that beautiful. It would put Tag back in a serious way on the map, I think, because they got hammered by COVID-19. If you look at what happened to their stock prices, LVMH, Tag's sales numbers are almost as bad as Omega, and Omega took an absolute thrashing.
Yeah, I don't, and I hear other criticisms of other watch brands where it's a Sellita movement and it's not in-house and they want $3,800 for it, and like they get, like I'll hear these same sort of gripes about other watch brands, but meanwhile Tag's like, oh yeah, it's $6,000. It has nothing, like there's nothing special about it. Like it's $1,000 because we just decided that's how many we're gonna make, and literally like double the price of what it really is probably worth. I mean, you can expect. I would not be shocked. So you pick this up, and again, we also have to like realize like nobody pays full retail, but still it's expensive. So say you get it for $5,800. No, $1,000 off. No, you would never get. No, it'd still be $6,000. So you still pay $6,000 for this. Used, that thing, it's gonna take a bath. It's like you try it and you're not really digging it, and you turn and sell it on Chrono 24 or something. It's like $4,800, $4,000 maybe.
Well, the other thing as well, which is pretty annoying about it. I mean, it's a beautiful watch, but the other thing that's annoying about it is they're saying, well, it's the recreation of the Montreal, which it isn't at all. In fact, as I mentioned before, it takes design cues from an Otavia.
Right.
But the thing was, what made the Montreal so significant was at the time it used the Caliber 12 chronograph movement, which was pioneering at the time. In fact, this was on from the Caliber 11 movement, which the Caliber 11 was very famous because it was in a collaboration with Heuer, Breitling, Hamilton Buren, and that name that I can't say, which is Dubras. I probably murdered that. But they came together, those companies, and created this Caliber 11, a very sophisticated and advanced for the time chronograph movement. So why isn't... I could see $6,500 if they said, oh, actually, we went back to the original specs. We've recreated this movement, this vintage movement from scratch, and that's why it's $6,500. But that's not what they're saying.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
I probably went on a bit more about that, a bit more over-passionate about the Heuer.
All right, Tag. Everyone, that's why we have the podcast. Sam's take on Tag. I'm right there with you, buddy.
I've got one more news story, and then we'll pause for a quick break. And this is a brief one that Hamilton, again, they're going to be in this new Tenant film, which is getting a lot of press at the moment. This is kind of a time shift. It's a Christopher Nolan film. And why it's significant is that Christopher Nolan seems to now be almost the unofficial spokesman for Hamilton, because it was in of course he had the Interstellar, very famously the Interstellar watch in Interstellar, and the Murph watch, and he also, I mean, this Hamilton watch, it's a good looking watch, but it's the same style as the one that was in The Martian. So if it's like that Dark Zero watch that was in the, I don't know if it's called the Dark Zero, I need to look this up, but so that's one thing. And also I noticed this watch have you seen the film? It's actually one of these that flew under the radar, I think, but it's really quite funny. Did you see the CIA film with Kevin Hart and The Rock in it?
No, I don't think so.
It's quite funny. It's basically that Kevin Hart, they're at high school and he's the head jock, he's captain of the football team and all of that. And The Rock, it's quite funny because they CGI him younger but also incredibly overweight. So he's like this. And something happens at school and Kevin Hart's there, but it progresses to current day where Kevin Hart hasn't seen him and he comes back and he's like a top CIA agent. So he goes on like it's just one of these formulaic comedy films, but there's a few interesting moments in it, but that has Hamilton in it as well. So Hamilton, I think, probably do the best job of getting into films. You hardly ever see Rolexes or anything like that unless it's a gangster film, like Scarface or something.
They were, they have, it seems like they've got like a division that's, and you're right, maybe with, working with the director. I mean, if I had a vision sort of as if I had if the art director for a movie has a vision of what everything needs to look like, and you have a huge watch company that will come to you and be like, we'll make you whatever you want. And so you have access to our entire collection, and we'll design you what you want, and we'll put it on screen, and it'll be amazing. Like a collaboration. To have that at your disposal I think it's cool. And it's something that Hamilton's always done.
We've kind of come full circle on your first point about, or one of your points regarding Swatch Group, because Hamilton, of course, is Swatch Group. And yet with Omega, you've got, we're good with James Bond. So, okay.
Right, yeah. We don't branch out.
All the characters can do this. Anyway, so I was just going to get your opinion on that. Before we dive into the main story, we'll just pause for a very quick ad break. Welcome back to Casual Watch Talk. So we thought for the main story we would talk about, and I don't think we've talked about this before, but Kickstarter, buying watches on Kickstarter. Now, Kris, you haven't bought a watch on Kickstarter, have you? But you have got experience buying things on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I backed a clear case for my vintage Macintosh. That took a while to go through, and all of the back and forth and delays and things like that happen with Kickstarter. But it was successful, so I've definitely done it. But other than that, not for any watches though.
You made a few interesting points there about delays and stuff, didn't you? If anybody's not familiar, Kickstarter, there's another one called Indiegogo, are probably the two most popular. Essentially, what these are I think they call it crowdfunding still, or maybe that was the buzzword at the time.
Yeah.
A watch company, or in Kris's case, somebody was making a case for an SE30, would go on there with an idea. They usually have a prototype, and then they'll say, hey, we need your help to get this off the ground. So you pledge a certain amount of money. Usually it's significantly cheaper than what the retail price would be for the item. And then you would get an item in return.
As an ideal, yes. But also, it is just a funding site, and stuff happens all the time where,
There's been some famous ones, haven't there? I think the most famous Kickstarter, there was a couple of famous Kickstarter fails, but one was, I remember there was like a ring that you put on your finger, and you used it as a mouse, and that never really got off. But I think if you ever look it up online, the most spectacular fail was there was a beer cooler that had everything in it, like a Bluetooth speaker, a radio in it. You could charge your phone on it, earn millions of dollars.
GPS navigation, yeah.
It's hilarious, but
and then never shipped.
Yes, I have backed 2 watches now on Kickstarter. So Mayan, they're still around, and then I'm waiting on one from a company called Walbrook, who have recreated a vintage watch, there was a brand called Walbrook. It was also called Douglas as well. I'm not sure if Douglas was the name they used to sell the watches in the US. The reason that I backed this one is that this is a recreation of the watch that Neil Armstrong, one of Neil Armstrong's actual watches. So obviously he wore the Speedmaster, but they didn't get to keep the Speedmaster. It's called the Skin Diver. They've done a beautiful recreation of it, or certainly it looks like that. There's definitely a risk there, isn't there? The Mayan one, I could probably talk about that. That one, I felt like we did get burned a little bit, but then you feel like, because a lot of these, Kris, is that it's usually their first time doing it, isn't it? So they're hitting supplies for the first time.
Yeah. So from my experience with the electronic side of it, like this case was just plastic. But I haven't necessarily backed, but I've followed any sort of like electronic stuff. And what's interesting is, being a maker myself, and like, knowing how to fabricate PCBs and buying that stuff, and, the manufacturing process, like it's what will happen is someone has this great idea, and they'll say like, oh, this is a great idea for a thing. And they might be able to get a hold of 1 or 2 of them or 10 of them or something like that and put a prototype together. What tends to happen is all of a sudden 50,000 people back it, and the part that they needed in order to put the thing together is like, we don't have 50,000 of those. You're going to have to like go find someone else to make those. and so then they've got to find another company that makes it, or the company that they like contracted to make them said they could do 1,000, and or said they could do 100 and they get an order for 1,000, or vice versa, said that they would only build them if they had an order for 1,000. Like they'll only give you the price break on the electronics if you make 1,000 of them, and they're like, oh, we only got 100 backers. Well, you're like, well, sorry, dude. I mean, I can't, I'm not going to start this giant, $10 million machine for 100 of these boards or whatever. So that no doubt translates to watch movements and sapphire and case materials and stainless steel. And I'm sure that same sort of thing where folks think that they can kind of get to it, and then they get involved in it, and they're like, we can't get 1,000 ETA movements.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. I backed Mayan, and Mayan's still going, and in fact I reviewed them on the channel, and my kind of view was don't really judge them on this first Kickstarter one, because I think now they're on a version 3 of this watch that I backed, which was called the Hudson. I think, and there's other watch brands that are famous now that started off on Kickstarter, like Mercer is another example. I think Laurier started on Kickstarter. There's a lot. It's weird, isn't it, Kris? There's a lot of watches on Kickstarter, a lot of mechanical watches. You think of it as being quite a niche hobby, don't we? We say that sometimes, but
right, yeah. But there's so many. There are so many, and like, I think there are success stories, but also I think you start to lose. And we've spoken about the sort of the. You don't get any sort of history of the brand. You don't get any like longevity. This company might stick around, this company might not. I mean, just watching the intro video of the cool looking prototype, you don't know if these guys are like, yeah, we're going to build 700 of these. We're going to make 80 grand and then we're going to go do something else. You don't know if that's what's going to. And so you kind of never quite know what you're going to get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this main one that I backed, that you could see where they were going with it. There was a lot of great things about it, but it actually put me off for a little bit buying Kickstarter watches. But I'm really excited about this Walbrook Skin Diver. It's called. They've done a faithful reproduction, but
yeah. You mentioned this. I've seen this before. You mentioned this. I want to say like 8 months ago.
Yes.
And so is that when it started? So. Where's the production? Where are they in the timing?
It's a great question, and I think maybe we could summarize this to try and make it more of a narrative that people can follow. Maybe in some pluses and minuses for Kickstarter watches or Kickstarter in general. I suppose we could.
Yeah.
So one of the pluses I would say is that you can get a unique watch, or a unique one-off design, usually a recreation of a vintage one. Usually they're very clever, usually very good-looking watches. There's usually a choice. A lot of them give choices between mechanical and Heuer, of course, started on Kickstarter. I should have mentioned them. Ryan and Reagan will probably be shouting at their phones now, like, why haven't you mentioned us?
Yeah.
But them, you usually get a choice of quartz or mechanical, which is great. So you end up with a very unique, good-looking watch that they've put a lot of thought into the design. I would say that was a definite pro of going with Kickstarter. Would you agree with that, Kris?
Yeah, I feel like you get to see you get access to sort of those unique designs, and there is, I think, there's a hell of a lot more of a feedback between the watchmaker and the group of folks. I mean, again, Heuer, sort of pointed this out. I mean, nowhere else are you going to be able to like send them an email and be like, "Oh, it'd be really awesome if you made it with the date." And they're like, "Well, we're gonna have an extra fund. We're gonna have a
stretch goal."
A stretch goal, right? A stretch goal for having them with dates. And so if you pledge this and that sort of thing. And you get that sort of connection that you just don't get with other brands, with other giant brands.
I agree with you, and usually they're set up by watch fans, so they lean into some of the popular design cues of the time, and I love that about them. there's a lot of choice on there as well, and usually you're getting a very nicely a very nice spec'd watch for considerably less than what you would pay for a named brand, for example. And there's certain reasons, of course, they want to encourage you to follow them. They've usually got several other designs that they're thinking about, and this is the launch one. So I really like that. That is a huge plus on Kickstarter. Now, a couple of the negatives I would say is sometimes you alluded to this before, Kris, didn't you? That sometimes what they can't deliver what they promise, but usually it's no fault of their own, like you mentioned with your case.
Right. Or they have to substitute something. So, we couldn't get the domed sapphire, so they're flat mineral, or something like that. So I would definitely, based on what I've seen and sort of the recommendations that I've heard and the stuff that I've followed, my recommendation would be realize that it's not a site, it's not Amazon. You're not paying them money and then instantly getting something.
Yes.
They have to put it together. They have to, this is a partnership for them to kickstart their first venture, or maybe their, second or third or whatever. In any case, it has to be throwaway money. Don't get into something that's thousands of dollars that you think like, oh, well, just it might not happen and you might be out that money.
That is a great point you just made there. And I would piggyback on that and say this is play money. And the other thing is, I mentioned before that you're getting a nice customized watch and you can perhaps email them, but also quell your enthusiasm, because every watch that I've backed or followed, usually there's a lot of unreasonable people in the comment section. Oh, well, I would have it if it had this sapphire, and I would have it. It's like, guys, the spec is the spec. They might they might take feedback on certain design cues, but the chances are that what you're seeing on Kickstarter is what you're going to get. Don't start thinking that you can make a custom oh, well, I would like it if it had my name on the dial or something. I've seen some like really weird things. And people are like, well, I'm just going to stop my pledge. Because you can pull out before they ship. You can actually pull your pledge out. There is that window.
I had, I just remembered I had some interaction with a watch on Kickstarter, a brand called Goodspeed. It's a vintage racing watch style. And their first Kickstarter didn't happen. So they made a watch called the Petrol that their first Kickstarter failed. I sort of had my eye on it. I didn't back it, but they did another one, and I feel like not the Petrol, but what was the second one they did? They did the Sonoma. I feel like they got into that. We'll just make everything we'll just try to make everyone happy.
Yeah.
And so they did vintage lume. They did a Pepsi bezel on a tachometer, which is a little interesting. I mean, color wise, okay, fun colors, but that's not really.
There's no bearing on it.
Yeah, no bearing on it. Kind of looks like a diver, is a chronograph. The subdials were, and then they had like 12 different dial versions, 12 different subversions, and I think they kind of got caught up in the like, we'll just try to make everyone happy, and then they redid the Petrol this time, and they're like, we're only making 50 of them, and it looks like they've got only 9. I'm sad, because I think they're going to be decent, because they were going to put mechanical movements in them, hand wound, pretty decent. But it's this sort of thing where you back it, you don't know what you're going to get. You're also gunning for this like cool design, but it's not necessarily going to make everybody happy.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually reached out to that company and they offered to send me one for review. But you're right in what you say. Some of the design cues it was definitely a chronograph, but it had the Pepsi dial, which is more for a GMT watch, and the hands were distinctly diver-esque, weren't they? They weren't chronograph hands, but yeah, it's interesting. So I suppose that one of the other kind of negatives or not as cool things, or one to just listen out for, and this will probably be the last one on this subject, but they have a time frame in there and they say, well, you can have it by May. What would you say, Kris? Add 5 months? Or
I mean, definitely just don't expect it. With my computer case, they these molds, I mean, they cost, just this one mold is, tens of thousands of dollars to make this thing and polish it and make sure it's like crystal clear. Well, they had made a bunch, but then what happened was like they had like micro scratching on them. And so then they were like, they weren't passing QC. And so like 6 months turned into a year, just because basically the handful of cases that they made, they just weren't good, and they had to go back and basically find another company to sort of remanufacture their molds to make them to their high quality standards. So yeah, good that like the final product I received was great, but yeah, definitely whatever they say, like, do not be shocked if you're checking your email a year from now being like, didn't I back a watch on Kickstarter like a year ago? And then like going through your email like, did I actually send them money? Like $240, So
it's funny. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would totally reiterate that. Just quell your enthusiasm. It's definitely a punt that you're taking, because I think even Kickstarter won't, if you actually do lose the money, I'm not sure that Kickstarter will. I mean, there must be something in there, but anyway. So guys, that was a really interesting story there, Kris. Let us know over on the Casual Watch Talk Facebook group if you've backed to Kickstarter, what your experiences have been. We've made it a private group now, which has made it really cool, hasn't it, Kris? We let you in as a member. A lot of good conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of good interaction. I'm seeing a bunch of cool stuff, and it's great. We get ideas for the show. What new stuff for Sam to maybe review. And have some great discussions. It's good.
You just reminded me of something. I've got to do a shout out to Don, who messaged me in the week asking where the podcast was, and I said thank you for reminding me. Apologies for the delay in getting it up, but that I would give him a little shout out and appreciate him chasing us up and making sure we were okay and everything.
Keeping us honest.
Yeah, we haven't. There's been no watch drama where Kris and Sam have had a falling out over a tag.
Right, exactly. But I really like it. I really like that chronograph.
Yeah, and I reiterate, I do really like that Heuer. I wish they weren't. It wasn't a gouge, but anyway.
Right.
Okay, guys. Well, really appreciate you listening. As always, we do check out the Facebook group, and we'll see you. We'll hear us next time on the next episode of Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.